The ad experience for the publisher, we talked about this in the town hall yesterday. That ad experience, we have a bunch of business folks in here, maybe not as tech folks. They're going to go back to their workplaces here. How does that conversation begin if they haven't already done an ad experience audit? What does that look like, and how's that conversation for these business folks?
So I think back to when I was running the New York Times, and we would have this argument about does every incremental ad unit help us? And we get into the circular conversation of no content, no ads, no ads, no content. It's the same conversation, but between the revenue side and the tech side, which is you're all running Ghostery or other solutions. What's on here? And how is it helping us? And if you can't draw some semblance of that tracker map and know who everybody is, that's a pretty good signal that your site's gotten out of control. It's hard. Listen, as a publisher, I remember a conversation at the Times, my boss, getting really bent out of shape. He's like, these ad networks are killing us. You know, they're selling our data, they're slowing the site down. He's like, let's turn them off. And this is when Walker Jacobs had kicked off all the ad networks when he was back at Turner. I said, that's great. It's going to blow an 8-figure hole in our EBITDA this year. He's like, don't do that. So there's got to be an in-between. But it's not an all or nothing thing. It's about simply starting by diagnosing what's the X-ray of your site look like, and then starting to set some rules in place. And that was a lot of what we talked about yesterday.
Yeah. The other thing we talked about was engagement of the creative agencies, engagement of the buy side in this problem statement. How much of the latency factor is occurring at the injection point of the advertising asset, upstream? How much are you seeing that? Because I see that tracker map, it's kind of like, whoa, where does it begin, right? From your observation?
Yeah, so it can start really far back up the chain. I think a lot of it starts on the buy side, and you know, the agencies tend to not be terribly sympathetic to these problems, which is understandable. I mean, it's what Dave Smith was saying yesterday. He's like, that's your problem as the publisher. But the publisher can set some ground rules the way they already have in terms of file size, and I think increasingly number of pixels that are coming along with each of these ads. Because yes, the agency wants to track all the metrics they can, but there comes a point at which, as you saw from the data, if it's taking 5 seconds for the data to get back to the DMP, the publishers nor the ad agency are getting really high quality data. So I think it's about setting better ground rules for what those should be, because it actually is to everyone's benefit.
Perfect. You know, the brand and the publisher's brand, the marketing brand and the publisher's brand run the risk of negative perception in the end user's eyes, right? We had discussed yesterday some sort of scoring methodology, or better yet, what does an enforcement mechanism mean at that point? How would you, it's a conceptual question, but how do we enforce these types of standards that are data-driven, data-backed type of thing in your experience that goes through the last 6 years?
Yeah, so I think that the best analogy is there are lessons to be learned from the successes and shortcomings of AdChoices. It actually starts from the two things I'd pull together is AdChoices plus IAB standard terms and conditions. This is not a government-centric thing where, like AdChoices, if we didn't do something, this conference wouldn't be terribly well attended. It's around understanding what types of user experience the sell side and the buy side can agree on. Because it is truly not one where the agency keeps loading pixels in and says just tough to the publisher. It's actually using the data to show the agency, you're wondering why your data doesn't make sense, why there's holes in what you're getting. Well, it's because you're loading so much stuff in and you're working with vendors whose tags fail or whose tags are running non-secure. Whether it's us or other companies that have these data, this is, I think, the right time to start that conversation, because this next $50 billion is going to come from the consumer. The consumer has made it clear that the user experience is not what they're looking for, and this is we think that another important dark corner that we have to shine a light on to improve the user experience.